It's 2 a.m. on a quiet Tuesday, the kind of stillness that makes every creak in the house feel like a gunshot. I'm tangled in the sheets, dreaming of neon-lit nights, when my girlfriend, Sarah, bolts upright, her breath sharp and ragged. "Someone's in our room," she whispers, her voice barely a hiss. My heart slams against my ribs, a cold sweat prickling my skin. I slide out of bed, barefoot, the floor icy against my soles, and creep to the door. I peek through the crack, and there he is, my roommate, Jake, my so-called friend, hunched over my dresser, his hands pawing through my drawers like a thief in the shadows. The dim glow of a streetlight catches his eyes, darting nervously, betraying his guilt. This is the guy I've shared beers with, danced with until dawn, trusted with my home. He's stealing from me, my money, my stuff, my peace of mind. The betrayal hits like a punch to the gut, raw and searing. How could he do this? How long has he been doing this? But what if I could turn the tables? What if I could make him regret ever crossing me? Stick around, because this is the story of how I caught my thieving roommate red-handed and served him a revenge so perfect, it still makes my heart race. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by someone you trusted, someone who took your kindness and threw it in your face, you're going to love this story. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and buckle up for a tale of betrayal, cunning, and the kind of justice that feels so good, you'll be cheering by the end. This is a Reddit revenge story about a thief who thought he could get away with it, and the moment he learned he was dead wrong. Ready? Let's dive in. Let's rewind to my mid-20s, when life was a whirlwind of music, lights, and late nights. I lived in a small town, but don't let that fool you, our nightlife was electric. The main strip was alive with energy, neon signs buzzing, bass lines thumping through club walls, the clink of glasses and laughter spilling out of pubs. I was right in the heart of it, slinging drinks at the biggest pub in town and moonlighting as a VIP host at the hottest club, The Pulse. The air smelled of spilled beer, cheap cologne, and possibility. Every night felt like a new adventure, a chance to chase the high of a good time. My roommate, Jake, was my wingman in this chaos. Picture a guy with a crooked grin that could charm anyone, eyes that sparkled with mischief, and a laugh that made you feel like you were in on the joke. Jake was the life of the party, quick with a one-liner, always ready to keep the night going. We'd been friends since our late teens, bonding over our love for the scene. Our apartment was a dive, but it was our dive, mismatched furniture, posters peeling off the walls, and a fridge that never had anything but beer and leftover takeout. It was a revolving door of friends, music, and late-night debates about nothing and everything. My girlfriend, Sarah, was the glue that held it all together. She was sharp as a tack, with a warm smile and a knack for matching Jake's wit. She'd dance with us until the clubs shut down, her laughter cutting through the haze of the night. The three of us were a unit, a little family of misfits living for the moment. Or so I thought. Those early days were golden. After my shifts, Jake and I would crack open cold ones, the hiss of the cans like a signal to unwind. We'd swap stories about the night, drunk patrons, wild club fights, the occasional celebrity sighting. We'd blast music, plan our next outing, and hit the town together. The Pulse was our kingdom, with its strobe lights flashing, bodies packed tight, and DJs spinning tracks that made your heart pound. We'd dance until our legs ached, lose track of time, and stumble home as the sky turned pink. Sarah would be right there with us, her eyes bright, her energy infectious. Sure, we partied hard, maybe too hard, but it was our life, and we loved every second of it. I trusted Jake completely. He was my brother in all but blood. I'd have given him the shirt off my back. But trust, I learned, can be a house of cards, ready to collapse with one wrong move. The first cracks were so subtle, I barely noticed. A $20 bill missing from my wallet. An empty baggie I could have sworn had something left in it. I'd come home from a wild weekend, my head foggy from too many drinks, and chalk it up to my own carelessness. "Must have bought that extra round," I'd mutter, shaking it off. Sarah would raise an eyebrow, her lips pursed, but I'd laugh it off. "Party brain, babe," I'd say, waving a hand. I was young, reckless, and maybe a little too trusting. I didn't want to believe someone close to me could be the problem. After all, Jake was always there, cracking jokes, pouring shots, keeping the vibe alive. He wouldn't do that to me. Would he? But the doubts kept creeping in, like shadows lengthening at dusk. My wallet started feeling lighter than it should. A drawer in my room would be slightly ajar, my jacket pockets turned inside out. Once, I found a shirt I hadn't worn in weeks crumpled on the floor, like someone had rifled through it. I'd asked Jake if he'd seen anything, and he'd flash that easy grin, leaning back on the couch like he didn't have a care in the world. "Nah, man, you know how it is. You probably dropped it at the club." His voice was smooth, but his eyes flicked away just a second too long. I'd nod, wanting to believe him, but the unease settled in my chest, heavy and cold. Was I losing my mind? Or was something darker going on? Sarah saw it before I did. One night, as we lay in bed, the room lit only by the faint glow of a streetlight, she turned to me, her voice low. "I don't trust him," she said. "Something's off with Jake." Her words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. I wanted to argue, to defend my friend, but deep down, I knew she was right. The missing money, the misplaced items, they weren't accidents. They were clues. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? The thought of Jake betraying me twisted my gut, a mix of anger and hurt I couldn't shake. But I wasn't ready to face it, not yet. Then came that Tuesday night, the moment everything changed. It was 2 a.m., the apartment silent except for the faint hum of the fridge. Sarah and I were asleep, her arm draped over my chest, when she sat up, her breath catching. "What's that noise?" she whispered, her voice tight with fear. My heart kicked into overdrive, adrenaline flooding my veins. I slipped out of bed, the floor cold against my bare feet, and crept to the door. A faint rustling came from the living room, like paper being crumpled. I peeked through the crack in the door, and my blood ran cold. There was Jake, hunched over my dresser, his hands moving quickly, rifling through my drawers. The streetlight cast harsh shadows across his face, his expression focused, almost greedy. My stomach churned, a wave of nausea hitting me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't party brain. This was betrayal, raw and undeniable. Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "That's him," she whispered, her voice trembling with anger. I felt it too, a hot, searing rage bubbling up inside me, threatening to spill over. All those missing $20 bills, all those empty baggies, all those times I doubted myself, they weren't accidents. Jake had been stealing from me, right under my nose, for who knows how long. My friend, my roommate, the guy I'd shared countless nights with. The betrayal cut deeper than a knife, slicing through years of trust. I wanted to storm out, grab him by the collar, and demand answers. But Sarah's hand tightened on my arm, grounding me. "Don't," she said, her voice low and steady. "Let's be smart about this. Let's catch him red-handed." Her eyes burned with determination, and in that moment, I knew we weren't just going to confront him. We were going to make him pay. The next morning, we sat at the kitchen table, coffee cups steaming between us. The air felt heavy, charged with purpose. My hands shook as I recounted every time something went missing, every $20 bill, every baggie, every moment I'd questioned my own memory. The anger was still there, but now it was focused, sharp as a blade. We weren't just going to kick Jake out. We were going to expose him, humiliate him, and make sure he regretted ever thinking he could get away with this. Sarah leaned forward, her eyes glinting with resolve. "We need proof," she said, tapping her old digital camera. This was the early 2000s, before smartphones were in every pocket, so her clunky camera was our best shot at catching him. The plan was simple but brilliant. We'd set a trap. I'd leave my wallet on the coffee table with $60 inside, 3 crisp $20 bills, impossible to miss. Next to it, we'd place a small baggie filled with sugar, just enough to look tempting. We'd make a show of leaving the house, saying we were running to the corner store for cigarettes, and then we'd wait. The camera, hidden behind a stack of books on the living room shelf, would capture every move. My heart pounded as we set it up. The wallet sat casually on the table, the bills fanned out just enough to catch the eye. The baggie was tucked beside it, half hidden under a magazine, like an afterthought. Sarah adjusted the camera, checking the angle through the tiny viewfinder. "This is it," she said, her voice steady but her hands trembling with anticipation. "He's going to hang himself." That evening, we played it cool, like nothing was wrong. Jake was sprawled on the couch, flipping through a magazine, his feet propped up like he owned the place. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. "Hey, man, Sarah and I are heading to the store for some smokes," I called out. "Back in half an hour." He barely looked up, just nodded. "Cool, see ya." His voice was lazy, but I caught the flicker in his eyes, a quick, calculating glance. He thought he had an opportunity. Little did he know, we were one step ahead. We left the apartment, the door clicking shut behind us. My pulse hammered in my ears as we walked down the street, the cool night air doing nothing to calm my nerves. We circled around to a nearby alley, ducking behind a dumpster where we could watch the apartment unseen. The minutes stretched on, each one heavier than the last. What if he didn't take the bait? What if he suspected something? My mind raced with worst-case scenarios, but Sarah squeezed my hand, her touch steadying me. "He'll do it," she whispered. "He can't help himself." Deep down, I knew she was right. Jake's greed had made him sloppy, and we were about to catch him in the act. After 30 agonizing minutes, we slipped back into the apartment, moving quietly, like thieves ourselves. The air felt thick, charged with anticipation. I checked the wallet first, $1.20 gone. One bill missing, just as we'd expected. The baggie? Vanished, not a trace left. My blood boiled, a mix of rage and triumph surging through me. Sarah grabbed the camera, her hand steady despite the tension. "Let's see what we've got," she said, her voice tight with excitement. We huddled around the tiny screen, the grainy footage flickering to life. There he was, Jake, creeping into the living room not 5 minutes after we'd left. His movements were quick, nervous, like a rat sniffing for danger. He glanced around, his eyes darting to the door, then zeroed in on the coffee table. His fingers snatched a $20 bill from my wallet, stuffing it into his pocket with a practiced ease that made my skin crawl. He grabbed the baggie next, holding it up to the light with a smirk, like he'd won a prize. Then he slipped it into his jacket and disappeared back to his room. The footage was crystal clear, undeniable. We had him dead to rights. I played that video over and over, each viewing fueling my anger. The smirk on his face, the casual way he took what wasn't his, it was like watching a stranger. How long had he been doing this? How many times had he laughed with me, shared a drink, all while slipping his hands into my pockets? The betrayal wasn't just about the money or the stuff. It was about trust, about the bond one thought we had. I felt like a fool, but I also felt something else, resolve. Jake wasn't getting away with this. Not this time. The next morning, I called Jake into the living room. He sauntered in, all cocky confidence, like nothing was wrong. "What's up, man?" he asked, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed. I could barely look at him without my fists clenching, the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Sarah stood beside me, the camera in her hand, her expression cold as ice. "Jake," I said, my voice low and controlled, "we need to talk about last night." His face didn't change, but I saw his shoulders tense, a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" he said, his tone too casual, too practiced. That's when Sarah hit play. The footage filled the silence, Jake's own actions betraying him in vivid detail. His eyes widened, his mouth opening and closing like he was grasping for air. That's not what it looks like," he stammered, his voice cracking. I stepped closer, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. "Really? Because it looks like you've been stealing from me for months. The $20 here, the baggie there, all those times I thought I was losing my mind. You admitted it, Jake." You've been ripping me off. His face went pale, his bravado crumbling like cheap plaster. He tried to deny it, throwing out excuses. It was just a one-time thing, I was going to pay you back, but the evidence was ironclad. Finally, he slumped, muttering, "Fine. I took some stuff. But it wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal." Those words hit me like a spark to gasoline. Not a big deal? I snapped, my voice rising. You betrayed me, Jake. You lived in my house, ate my food, partied with me, and you thought you could steal from me like I'm nothing? Sarah put a hand on my shoulder, calming me just enough to keep from losing it. You've got 24 hours to pack your stuff and get out, I said, my voice shaking but firm. And don't ever come back. He stood there, stunned, his mouth working but no words coming out. For the first time, Jake looked small, like the coward he was. He mumbled something about being sorry, but it was too late. The damage was done. As he turned to leave, I felt a weight lift, but I wasn't done. Kicking him out was just the beginning. I wanted him to feel the sting of his actions, to know he couldn't just walk away unscathed. And I had the perfect plan to make that happen. See, I wasn't just a bartender. I was a fixture in this town's nightlife. The main strip had 5 venues, 2 small pubs, 1 major pub, and 2 clubs. I worked at the major pub and the Pulse, the hottest club, where the line stretched around the block every weekend. More importantly, I was tight with the security crews at 4 of the 5 spots. These guys weren't just colleagues, they were my brothers, the kind, say no more, he said, his voice hard. He's done. By the end of the day, word had spread like wildfire. Jake was blacklisted, barred from every major venue in town. The only place left was a sleepy little pub that closed at 10 p.m., a far cry from the pulsing, all-night raves Jake lived for. But it got even better. I heard through the grapevine that Jake had to move back in with his mom. Her house was a fortress of rules, no alcohol, no parties, and an open-door policy that meant she'd check his room whenever she felt like it. For a guy like Jake, who thrived on the chaos of the nightlife, it was like being sentenced to solitary. No clubs, no crowds, no escape. Just him, his mom, and the quiet hum of suburbia. I could almost picture him, sitting in his childhood bedroom, staring at the walls while the town partied without him. The thought made me grin, a petty but delicious satisfaction settling in my chest. The first weekend after Jake moved out, I was working the door at the Pulse. The air was thick with energy, the bass line vibrating through the pavement, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. I felt alive, free, like I'd reclaimed something I hadn't even realized I'd lost. Then I saw him, Jake, standing across the street, his silhouette sharp against the neon glow. He was staring at the club, his hands shoved in his pockets, his face a mix of longing and frustration. He took a step toward the door, then another, like he thought he could talk his way in. Mike, the head bouncer, stepped forward, arms crossed, his frame filling the entrance. "Not tonight, mate," Mike said, his voice calm but unyielding. Jake's face twisted, anger, embarrassment, defeat all at once. He argued, his voice rising, but Mike didn't budge. Finally, Jake turned and slunk away, disappearing into the night like a ghost. I watched him go, a slow grin spreading across my face. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. He thought he could steal from me, betray my trust, and walk away unscathed. But now he was shut out, cut off from the life he loved. Every Friday and Saturday, while the town came alive, he'd be stuck in his mom's house, the silence deafening. I was out here, living the life we used to share, while he was nowhere. The satisfaction was electric, a rush better than any night at the club. I'd taken back my power, my peace, my pride. Sarah was there that night, her arm looped through mine as we watched the crowd pour in. The strobe lights flashed, painting her face in bursts of color. "Worth it?" she asked, a knowing smile playing on her lips. I laughed, pulling her close, the warmth of her body grounding me. "Every single second," I said, and I meant it. Looking back, that experience changed me. Trust isn't just about believing in someone, it's about knowing they respect you enough to not cross that line. Jake's betrayal cut deep, but it also showed me who I could really count on. Sarah, with her sharp mind and fierce loyalty, was my rock. My friends, the bouncers who had my back without question, were my family. Revenge isn't always the answer, but sometimes, when someone wrongs you so deeply, there's nothing more satisfying than watching them face the consequences. Karma's a funny thing, it doesn't always need your help, but giving it a nudge feels pretty darn good. So, what do you think? Did Jake get what he deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story gave you that rush of justice, smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or pulled off yourself? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another epic Reddit revenge story. We've got more tales of betrayal, cunning, and sweet payback coming your way, so stick around. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.